Boobs, breasts, mammaries. Seriously, why do men love them so much? They feed babies, but besides that, they really don't serve much of a function, except for having some dark, magical power over half the planet. I mean, they're just fat deposits on a chest, and yet from fertility goddesses carved in stone to the latest Super Bowl ad, they've been the most sexualized body part in human history. Science has tried to explain it. Some say it's about evolution, others point to brain chemistry. But here's a twist. Some cultures don't sexualize breasts at all. In a few tribes, there's nothing exciting about them. So is this really biology, or is it just what we've been taught to want? Hey, I'm Ken LaCourte. I take on the awkward questions you're not supposed to ask at a dinner table, and this is one of them. In this video, we'll break it down. First, what science has to say about evolution, biology, and neuroscience. Then we'll take a look at how society and culture shapes attraction. And finally, we'll take a quick look at the history of breasts and men's attraction to them. In a few minutes, you're going to know more about breast attraction than any of your friends, I guarantee it. Now look, there's an insane amount of research on why men love breasts. Evolutionary biologists, psychologists, neuroscientists, they've all taken a crack at it, and I could fill up a 90-minute video just talking about the theories. But let's start with what everyone knows, the Freud theory. It's probably the most commonly repeated explanation. Men are attracted to breasts because they subconsciously associate them with the comfort of breastfeeding as babies.
Everybody knows that if you breastfeed boys when they're babies, they're going to grow up to be obsessed with breasts.
Now, Freud was brilliant at understanding human nature. I mean, really groundbreaking. But sometimes his ideas about sex went a bit off the rails, and they're the ones we remember, it seems like. But if he was right, everyone who was breastfed, including women, would have the same fascination. Another common belief is that large breasts signal fertility. The idea seems logical. Fuller breasts could mean youth, health, and the ability to feed offspring. Some studies even found that women with larger breasts do have higher levels of certain reproductive hormones. But that's a tricky thesis to prove. If big breasts really signaled better fertility, then men across all cultures, over all times, would prefer them. And that's not the case at all. Other theories haven't held up either. In the 1960s, zoologist Desmond Morris became a best-selling author, claiming breasts evolved to mimic buttocks when humans stopped walking on all four legs. And then there's the symmetry argument, that men are drawn to perfectly matched breasts, similar to faces, because symmetry signals good genes. Except that almost no woman really has perfectly symmetrical breasts, and trust me, men just don't care about that. So there are some of the popular theories that seem wrong. Let's look at some of the more recent research. Now, the first thing that science really points out is that biology does play a role. I mean, if men's attraction to breasts were purely cultural, it wouldn't be so widespread. I mean, yeah, there's a few societies that don't sexualize them, but in most of the world, they get a lot of attention. That suggests there's something deeper going on. Something in our biology, or our brain wiring, or both. Here's one of the most compelling explanations I found: timing. During puberty, boys experience their first surges of sexual feelings right as girls are developing breasts. It's like nature's perfect storm. These initial rushes of hormones and attraction get powerfully linked to the most visible sign of female development. For many men, that association gets wired into our brains forever. The first experience of sexual attraction permanently connected to breasts. Girls typically develop breasts between age 10 and 12, exactly when boys experience their first major testosterone surge. And that testosterone in young boys spikes by about 800% during that period, literally rewiring their brains and bodies, and they notice those changes in girls as well. There's another theory that's pretty fascinating. It's about pair bonding. Neuroscientist Larry Young discovered something surprising, that men's attraction to breasts might actually help couples stay together. When a woman's breasts are stimulated during intimacy, her brain releases oxytocin, the same cuddle chemical that bonds mothers to their babies during breastfeeding. That oxytocin surge makes a woman feel more emotionally connected to her partner. So from an evolutionary standpoint, men who were naturally drawn to breasts had an advantage. That attraction helped create a stronger relationship with their wives, and that meant longer survival odds for the children. Now, the numbers can back this up. I mean, one study found that women who experienced more breast and nipple stimulation during intimacy reported 20% higher levels of oxytocin, and couples who engaged in that type of intimacy showed significantly stronger emotional bonds. Now let's take a look at brain chemistry, which goes a bit deeper. When men see breasts, the reward centers in their head light up like slot machines. It triggers the same dopamine systems that make us crave sugar or getting hooked on gambling. Brain scans show that this isn't just an imagination, there's a real neurological response going on. In fact, when researchers showed men images of breasts, their brains released as much dopamine as they did when they were given a small amount of money. That response also gets stronger with every exposure. Every time a man's brain links breasts with pleasure or excitement, those neural pathways get reinforced. It's like your brain saying, hey, pay attention, this is important. So, I don't know, maybe men don't love breasts because they signal fertility or youth. Maybe they love them because over thousands of generations, that attraction helped them create stronger families. After all, evolution does have a way of keeping what works.
Life, finds a way.
But while all that biology might be true, our culture fine-tuned this into an obsession. Hey, look, I've researched this video and I'm trying to do it justice. If I've made any substantive mistake, I'll fix it in a pinned comment below. Okay, but there's a counter-argument to this being all about biology. If men's attraction to breasts were purely biological, then it wouldn't change across cultures or time. But it does. In some societies, breasts are a major focal point of sexuality, but in others, not so much. Take the Mundari people of South Sudan. Women go topless daily and men barely notice. Or some Amazonian tribes where exposed breasts aren't sexualized at all. Or Japan, where historically cleavage wasn't a big deal, but the nape of a woman's neck was. If attraction to breasts was completely hardwired, you wouldn't see that kind of variation. So while biology might prime men to notice breasts, culture is what turns that into an obsession, and it starts early. So one thing to mention is the power of the taboo. We're wired to want what we can't have in life. When something is forbidden, hidden, or off limits, it becomes more desirable. The brain works overtime, imagining what's being kept secret. I mean, think about how Western societies treat breasts. They're simultaneously sexualized and censored. They're illegal to show in public or on most social media, but all that covering and censoring does something interesting. It creates a mystery, and mystery breeds fascination. Again, look at cultures like the Mundari, but show someone a glimpse of something their own culture considers taboo, like a glimpse of an ankle or the back of the knee in Victorian England. Some Middle Eastern cultures fixate more on hair because it's what's usually covered, often by law. It's a feedback loop that gets stronger over time. Because breasts are sexualized, society covers them up. Because they're covered up, they become more sexualized. I mean, imagine a world where everyone had to keep their ears covered, where showing an ear in public was scandalous, and magazines had ear teasers, and movies had to be carefully have rules about how much ear could be shown. How long before ears became weirdly erotic? The patterns played out for thousands of years, but importantly, what societies consider attractive, especially about breasts, has changed dramatically over time. I mean, our earliest art makes that clear. The Venus of Willendorf, carved over 25 years ago, has massive, exaggerated breasts. Was that a symbol of survival? Or was she ancient porn? Or maybe both. Fast forward to ancient Greece and everything changes. Their statues and their art celebrate small, firm breasts, often barely visible under robes. Large breasts weren't considered attractive. They were sometimes considered comedic. The ideal woman was athletic and proportional, not busty. The Middle Ages brought another shift. There, the ideal medieval woman had very small, almost boyish breasts. And historical records show that women actually tried to stop them from growing using binding. Medieval medical books also included recipes for reducing breast size. And then came the Victoria era, where women both squeezed them into corsets that pushed them up, but they also didn't show any of the actual flesh that was scandalous. Exaggerated breasts, but keeping them completely covered. More recently, the pendulum has kind of swung back and forth a lot faster. In the 1920s, the flapper era, they went back to very skinny, thin girls. 30 years after that, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, they made large breasts the ultimate symbol of sex appeal. Then heroin chic came back in the 90s with ultra-thin models like Kate Moss. And the 2000s brought back the busty look, this time enhanced by surgery. Today, and I think this is internet-driven, we're seeing something new. We're seeing that multiple ideals exist all at once. It's not like society is liking them this way and liking them that way. We're seeing it all at the same time. But the key point to all of this is that these dramatic shifts prove that culture shapes desire as well. If this was hardwired, beauty standards wouldn't flip-flop so drastically. What's considered the perfect breast has changed more in the past century, probably than in the previous 1,000 years. And the media is obviously a driver of a lot of this. I mean, if a breast grabs attention, the media knows exactly how to use it. Movies, TVs, advertising, music videos, they all understand a little bit of cleavage make people look twice. And in an industry fighting for every eyeball, that matters hugely. And studies back it up. They show that people, even women, are more likely to click on a thumbnail featuring cleavage. The models draped over a car or serving up beer in ads, they're not necessary for the product, but they work in selling it. Again, this is a cycle as well. The media uses breasts because they grab attention, and the media helps tell us what to like. The fashion industry follows along, of course, and they've made billions of dollars trying to help women find that perfect breast of that generation. In fact, last year alone, over 300,000 American women got breast augmentation surgery. That's over 1,000 women every workday, changing their bodies to match what society finds attractive. So to wrap up boobs, biology starts the engine, but culture takes the wheel. While science explains the foundation of attraction, what we find sexy is undeniably shaped by our society. Look, our minds work in fascinating ways, constantly shaping our perceptions and beliefs. If you want to look at a different twist on the brain, you may like this video I did, Why Do Smart People Fall for Dumb Ideas? Geniuses like Isaac Newton held bizarre beliefs. Why? Why did somebody like Steve Jobs, despite revolutionizing the world, reject the very science that probably would have saved his life? All of us can be tricked into believing stupid things, and I explain why. Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope you got something out of this, and if you did, come back again.